Hey there, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Female Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Christa Gurka. I've been having some major tech issues lately, so my mic isn't working great. One of my audio or video platforms wasn't working. So I know you can see me, and I know that there is audio coming through. So hopefully this is going to work. But I'm really behind in recording, so I got to get this done so the rest of my team can get on with their tasks. So, anyways, moving on. Today's episode is all about how to make data-driven decisions in your business, even if you think that you are bad with numbers. Because what I'm here to tell you is that you don't have to be good with numbers to run a profitable business. You just have to be willing to look at them. It's important when you decided you are going to open your business and you or buy a business or run a business, you basically signed a contract that said, I am going to be responsible for the financial solvency of this business to make sure I get paid, to make sure I serve my clients, and to make sure that the people that work for me have a safe, stable place to work. So it is part of the contract you sign when you decide to become a business owner. So this is part of being a business owner. I'm just going to say it. It's part of being a business owner. Okay. You don't have to be good at the numbers. You just have to look at them. You have to be willing to look at them and you have to be willing to learn. The same way you learned how to be a good physical therapist, the same way you learned anatomy and the brachial plexus when you wanted to rip your hair out, the same way you learned the classical order of the Pilates mat exercises if you did that, or sun salutation A and B when you were learning your yoga certification, you can learn this too. Okay. In the 18 years that I ran my own studio and physical therapy practice, and I have coached hundreds of other owners in this industry, the difference between being stressed out about numbers and being reactive to those that are calm and make more objective CEO-like decisions is not really the intelligence of the owner themselves. It's just data and the willingness to look at the data and dissect the data and determine what needs to be done. I love alliteration. I just made that up. Okay. So you want to look at the data, dissect the data, and then determine what needs to be done. I like a little alliteration. So the real problem that some of you are having in your business is not the math, okay? It's the mindset that you have that you're not good with numbers, that you're embarrassed because you don't know the right financial questions to ask. Well, stop being embarrassed. Stop saying that you're not good at numbers and saying you have a way to change that by learning. And I'm going to teach you today the numbers you should be tracking in your business and what each of them tells you about your business. Okay. This applies to cash-based PT practices. It could apply to insurance-based practices. Unfortunately, some of the revenue that comes in is a little behind depending on how well and how up to date you are with your billing. But yoga studios, massage there, any fee for service business, this works for. Okay. Monthly revenue is metric number one. Now, I prefer to, especially if you're doing anywhere upwards of $500,000 in revenue, you should be looking at these numbers weekly. So determine what your week is. Is it Sunday to Saturday? Is it Monday to Sunday? Whatever it is. But Monday morning, okay, you should be looking at the numbers from the week previously. So you should be looking at weekly revenue. That's all the money that you brought in the previous week, all the sales that you made. Okay. That doesn't just tell you, are you busy? And it doesn't just tell you, are you making money? Right? It's, is the revenue trending up? Is it trending down? Or is it flat? That's what you're looking at. Are we trending up, down, or flat? Okay. In our business, in our industry, some industries, especially if we're selling packages, so class-based industries, then there's usually a cycle. So people renew their packages and then you have a little bit of a dip and then they renew again. So you get this little up and down wave. If you're watching me on YouTube, you can see my finger doing that. But for the most part, you should see, is your revenue trending upwards? Okay. Is it flat or is it trending down? Because you want to catch these things before they really become a problem. It's also a way to catch mistakes. I caught a mistake years ago in my business, probably 10 years ago. And I don't know, for those of you that have been in business for 10 years or more, when MindBody had this huge glitch in their software that was giving people back services for late cancellations and no-shows. So, for example, if somebody had two no-shows or two late cancellations in a package from years ago, somehow it was putting them back into their account. So because I was tracking my revenue so regularly and I knew that we should be having this upcycle and I wasn't seeing the upcycle even though our utilization was going up, I was like, something is wrong. And that's where I found the problem, that this glitch was giving people back services so they didn't have to, they weren't buying when they should. And the crazy thing is that MindBody knew this was happening and it didn't notify its clients, which is one of the reasons I was like, these people don't have my best interest at heart. So, anyways, that's a whole other podcast episode. So, metric number one, money coming in. Metric number two, money going out. Okay. So, monthly expenses. So, that's your total operating expenses, right? Everything that goes out in the business, money coming in, money going out. Okay. So the question that you're asking yourself is the same as the revenue. Is it going up? Is it going down? Or is it flat? And are my expenses growing at a rate faster than my revenue is? So if your expenses are more than your revenue, you're losing money. So money coming in, money going out, right? Metric number three, owners pay. Excuse me. And when I say owners pay, I'm talking about what you pay yourself on salary. So if you're not an S Corp, if you're an LLC and you take an owner's draw, I want you can track this, but recognize that it's coming technically out of your profit, not really out of your monthly expenses. Okay. So if you're an S Corp, and I don't want to confuse people, which is why I usually just talk about people that are S Corps that are paying themselves on salary. Okay. You want to know, is this how you're on your P&L as an expense, as your own line item, not just under payroll? It should say officer salary or owner salary so that you can determine what is your specific pay as an owner. What this is going to tell you as an owner is, are you building a business or are you just buying a job for yourself? Right? Because would you take the amount of money you're getting paid if you were working for someone else for the amount of work you're doing? Now, maybe you say yes. I don't know. But I just had a call with someone yesterday that was paying themselves $20,000. That's below minimum wage. Okay. So I'm not about being greedy. I'm happy, but listen, $20,000 does not a life make, right? And for that, you can make more than $20,000 going to work for somebody else. So I'm just saying, money coming in, money going out. What's your owner salary? What are you paying yourself? Then, what is the profit that is left over after all of your expenses go out? Okay. You can look at this as a dollar amount, which is what we call net income, right? So that's all after everything that comes in, everything that goes out, you're left with. So if you bring $50,000 in each month and you pay out $40,000 in expenses, you're left with $10,000. You can look at that as a percentage also, right? So $10,000 is your net income, or $10,000 would be, let me do the math, is a percentage, would be 20%. So $10,000 would be a 20% profit. So you can look at it when it's called profit margin, that's the percentage amount. When it's a dollar amount, it's called net income. Okay. Now, 15 to 20, 22% is healthy. 15 is great. 20 is greater. Okay. Anything less than 10 needs attention. Is this business sustainable? Now, I also want you to recognize what stage of your business are you in? Are you in a growth stage? If you're in a growth stage, you're just starting out, you're growing, or you're expanding, you're opening more locations, you're hiring, you might be less than 10% profitable. And that's okay because you're growing. So your expenses are going to be higher. But if you're in an optimization mode, if you're in a stability phase and you're still operating at less than 10% profit, that's something you need to look at. Okay. If you have 20, 25% profit, 30% profit, I also think that needs attention because maybe you're not paying yourself enough, number one. Maybe you're not hiring the amount of people you need to offload some of those tasks that are making your life miserable. Maybe you're not spending enough in marketing to truly grow the business. So both sides are telling you a story. The fifth metric I like to look at is utilization rate. So what utilization rate is what is the utilization of your total schedule? So if you have 10 available spots on your schedule and 8 of them are full, you have an 80% utilization rate. So what you want to look at is how much of the total capacity of your studio is full. Okay. And what that's going to tell you is, do you have a marketing problem? You're not getting enough people in the door. Do you have a sales problem? You're getting enough people in the door, but you're not getting them to convert. Or that could also be an operations problem because they think the service sucked. Okay. So utilization gives you an idea of all three of those business silos, right? Marketing, sales, and utilization. So if you want to dissect those even more, if you're getting a lot of first clients in, you're getting a lot of first visits, you don't really have a marketing problem. If those people aren't converting, okay, you might have either a sales problem or an operations problem. If you have really high retention, you have 80 or 90% retention, it's probably not an operations problem, it's probably a sales problem. And that's how you start to dissect where is the problem in my business. Okay, maybe it's one specific person. Maybe it's the whole process. Maybe you don't even have a sales process. A sales process is this person comes in, they do an evaluation. The therapist that does their evaluation walks them to the front desk at the end and tells your administrator, hey, Jane is going to continue. I want her to schedule 4 to 5 visits. We're going to see her once a week. Jane, I'd like you to schedule your first 5 because our schedule is really full. I want you to get on so we can stay consistent. That person does that. That's the sales process. Okay. They also have automated emails or texts that go out, making sure to keep encouraging this new person, making sure to keep them as a long-term client. That's what a sales process is. Okay. What do these numbers tell you? Well, if revenue is flat, you're not growing. In fact, I would usually say you're shrinking or you're dying because usually expenses are going up. Okay. So if you have flat revenue, expenses are going up, and utilization is really high, okay, you need to either restructure your payroll or you need to restructure your pricing. Or you might need to take away those unlimited memberships. All right. What about if you see something else? What if you see that your revenue is down, your owner's pay is really low, okay, and your utilization is low? I would say look at your marketing and your sales process first. That's what I would look at first. Okay. What if you have good, strong revenue coming in? Okay. Your profit is low and your owner's pay is low. Then I would really look at your expenses. Are you sending too much money out the door? Is your payroll not sustainable? Are you paying over 50, 60% of your income is going out to payroll? All right. I was just on a call with a business owner yesterday, and when we were looking at her numbers, her payroll was 53% of her income. So if 53% is already going out the door, right? Another 10% on average goes to rent. So that's 63% that goes out the door. Then you have 3% in credit card fees, usually. That's 66% is going out the door. Okay. Then if you're doing what we should be doing and spending anywhere between 5 and 15% in marketing, let's even say it's just low and she's spending 5% in marketing and advertising, that's 71% that's going out the door. Okay. Now you have to have your operational expenses, your admin, your utilities, your equipment costs, your payroll fees, your the taxes and payroll taxes and all that stuff that's going out. That's usually another 20%. So 71 now, 71%, another 20% is going out the door. That's 91%. Okay. That's going out the door. She has not yet paid herself. All right. She has not yet saved for taxes, right? So there's a lot that needs to have. So if your payroll is already that high, you need to have your rent needs to be way down. You're not going to have money to spend on marketing, which means you're not going to grow. It becomes this really hard spiraling cycle, which is why it's really important to look at these numbers. I recommend looking at them weekly. Like I said, what's the revenue you collected that week? What are the total appointments, right, that you had? Total class visits, total PT sessions, that will tell you your utilization. Okay. How much of the is your payroll? So the expenses going out, what is your owner's pay of that? And then how much is your payroll of that, right? So can you look at is your payroll 30 to 35% of all the money you bring in? If it's higher, you got to look at something. Okay. And then you can look at it weekly, but then at the end of every month, you're going to really evaluate these numbers so that you can say, are we doing what we need to be doing? Or do we have to find where the kink in the chain is? You don't have to be good at math. In fact, you don't even have to put these numbers together for yourself. Okay. In our accelerator, FitBiz Accelerator, and in the Inner Circle and the Elevate to Exit programs, we provide these spreadsheets, these scorecards for our business owners. In fact, if you're watching me on YouTube, I am going to show you that right now. Okay, so I am going to show you, and if you're not watching on YouTube, go over to YouTube, go to my YouTube channel, okay, and I am going to show this to you, okay? So here we go. I know this, and if you're listening to this as a podcast, this is kind of a pain in the ass, but here we go. I'm going to show you so go to YouTube. So this is what we're doing here, okay? We're looking at week over week. Okay, so we do 1 week at a time. We're doing total studio sales. Okay, total studio sales for the week, right? And then we're saying total available spots. We're saying how many of those spots were scheduled and what the total utilization is. Now, we're taking this even a step further, and then we're going down each individual person on the schedule and looking at their utilization. All right. And what we're looking at here too is how much of the total utilization is this person responsible for? Because one of the other things we want to look at is not necessarily, we want to make sure that no one individual is responsible for 70% of the schedule. So I like to say that no one individual is responsible for more than 30% of the schedule, because then you're not dependent on any one individual, right? So then you look at first packs, how many first visits, and your conversion. Okay. We have another example here where we can actually look at, this one is for another studio that we have. Is this one it? No. Let's do this one. Okay, so we have another example here where we're looking at, okay, same thing. We're looking at the week, right? 1 week at a time. We're looking at the total sales, right? We're looking at the class. This is for a class-based studio as well as apartments. So we're looking at the total class visits each and every week. We're looking at the amount of classes that were held. So we're making sure that we're not in this was a holiday week. So we obviously had a day closed. So we only had 86% of our classes scheduled. We're looking at one-on-one sessions. We look at unique customers. We look at first visits coming in. We look at total utilization, and then we did look at, cash balance. And we were looking at these numbers weekly, so that we could see, were we trending up, were we trending down, were we flat? And the people in the mentorship groups get access to these spreadsheets. You don't even have to be the one to put the numbers in. You can have someone on your team put the numbers in. They have to have access to your scheduling system so you could see the sales for the week. You can see the total available spots that were available, how many of those available spots were filled, and what's the total utilization of that. Okay, so that you know that, let's say your goal at the beginning of the year is to do $800,000 in revenue. Okay, and you know that your expenses, when you look at 2025, your expenses for the year were $650,000. Okay. So if you want to have, so your expenses were $650,000. Okay. Now, let's say that you want to give yourself a raise. You made $60,000 last year and you want to pay yourself 80 this year. So now you need to, your expenses last year were 650,000. You want to give yourself a $30,000 raise. So you're going to add $30,000 to your expenses. Okay. And you want to have 15% profit, 1.5. All right. So now you're going to multiply that times 1.5. So you need to bring in $782,000 this year in revenue. Okay. So now let's say that you're an appointment-based business. You're an appointment-based business. So you're PT or you're private Pilates, right? And you know that you want to do this on a 48-week year. So you're going to divide by 48 weeks. And the average amount that someone pays, okay, is, let's go with PT because it's a little more expensive. Let's say the average amount someone pays is $200 a visit. So divided by 200 is, you need to see 81 visits a week. So that's the number you're solving for. Each and every week, you need to see that the number of butts in seats, the number of people paying people on the schedule is 81. So you need to track that. If you start the week at 85 and you end up at 75, you've got to cut out your cancellations, or you've got to figure out how you're going to get more people on the schedule, get people off a wait list, have a wait list, call people that have an evaluation a week from now and move them up. Okay. So let's say you're a class-based studio and you know that the average someone pays per class is $30. Okay, so then you divide that by 30, and what you know is you need to have 543 visits a week in your classes, right? So that's the number you solve for. This is why looking at your data is really, really important, okay? Because if you can't get that, one, you have to look, do you even have the capacity to have that many people in? If you don't, you need to hire, you need to raise your prices, or you need to add more classes. If you do, you really need to make sure that that number is sustainable to get in. If that's 100% of your utilization, that's not sustainable. You're not going to hit that number every week. So this is why looking at your data allows you not to fly blindly. Okay. And then everyone can be rowing in the same direction. I need 543 visits in my studio each and every week, or I need 81 PT visits. I don't care if they're evaluations or follow-ups. You need 81 visits. And you as a CEO, if you were stuck on a desert island and you couldn't get home, okay, or if you were stuck in the snowmageddon that people are being stuck all over because it's snowing everywhere and they can't get back to their studio, if somebody gives you one number each and every week and it's your utilization, as long as you know that that's the number that's going to get you to your goals, you're great. If that number is 81 or higher, right, for your specific business, you're okay, everything is working. If it's lower, then you start to dissect. Is it a sales problem? Is it a marketing problem? Is it an operations problem? Are people falling off, taking too much vacation? What is it? Okay. This is why data drives decisions and decisions makes dollars. You have to look at your numbers. You have to be willing to look at it, and it gives you the framework, the roadmap, the guideposts of where you're going. So you are not flying blindly anymore. You know exactly what you need to do, exactly what you need to solve for. And this is what the successful business owners are doing that are leading to successful and profitable businesses. And everyone listening to this podcast can learn how to do this. Okay. This is not a skill set that is out of your reach. You just have to start. And if you want to start and you want some guidance and you want to be in a room full of women that are doing this, I invite you to head on over to my website, www.christagurka.com. You can join our monthly membership. That's $99 a month. Okay. Cancel anytime. There's no long-term commitment. You will learn this stuff. Plus, you will be in a room full of women that are doing it, that can help you, that can guide you, that can talk you off the ledge, that can share their experiences with you. Okay. We have women in the group that in 3 years went from $350,000 in annual revenue, not paying themselves, to over $750,000 paying themselves a six-figure salary. So this stuff works. I promise you. It's the stuff that got me to a multiple seven-figure studio and allowed me to sell and walk away, okay, with a lucrative amount of money in my bank. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. What I want you to realize is you don't have to be a math major. You don't have to be, the calculus genius, okay? You just have to be willing to look at your numbers, and each and every one of you has the ability to do that. You do. And I'm here to help you along the way. All right, my friends, until next time, bye for now.